Hey, welcome to the Scuttlebutt. I'm Rich, and this is a absolutely awesome day we got going on here. We're actually getting some rain first time in a while, and it is very welcome. You should see what my zucchini are doing. I've got a trapper here, and pretty cool here. We were actually trading a few war stories before we started about filming for YouTube and all that kind of stuff. This is Jake Dreger, and you're from Wetaskiwin, Alberta. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rich. Nice to be here. Thanks for asking me to come out.
Oh, we're busy trying to talk with everybody, and we used to be, and we did this stuff in person. We would do a podcast every 2 or 3 weeks, and now that we're not doing it in person, we've kind of stepped it up. We're trying to get one in every week, which is getting expensive on the hosting. One of the things nobody ever thinks about is the hosting costs, because these keep getting longer. We keep talking longer and longer, and the longer they are, the bigger the file is. And I think I'm up to now 500 or 600 megabytes a month on my plan, and I got to be careful to try and get that in.
Well, you're like the Joe Rogan of trapping podcasts, Rich. So you got to roll, man.
Well, I would really like to talk to Joe. I think that would be really cool.
I would as well. I've actually tried to extend an invitation to him, but I don't know. I think he's probably got a pretty good list there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think he does too. I think actually I kind of have a back door connection to him almost. It's really weird. Okay. But he has hunted black bear in Alberta, and the fellow that he's hunted black bear with used to buy beaver from me for bait.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
So I thought that was the perfect opening to ask him, but I've never heard back. And I think probably in their world, that we're maybe too controversial. Like
maybe the fur thing is a little too far removed from the hunting part. Yeah, I'm not sure if he's into that or not.
Well, he's
kind of funny. Meat eater on.
Yeah, I know, and I have a very good friend who's very good friends with Steve, and I don't know, Steve hasn't made contact, and it could also be because of the border or whatever. But I mean, Steve is a trapper, not on the level of what we do, but they do a lot of beaver and muskrat, that kind of stuff, and he'd be interesting guy to talk to. But I watched like Joe Rogan needs a shout out from me, but I watched last year when he went deer hunting with Steve from Meat Eater, and they did some mule deer in the on the Missouri River in Montana, and then they did whitetail over in Wisconsin. It was very different if you followed him to watch his growth as a hunter. When he first started, yeah, he started in the archery world and that kind of stuff. And here's my comment about that. If you're an archer, good on you. If you're good at it, good on you. But don't brag like you're some kind of special uber warrior because you're using a bow, because you're using a technique that accounts for more wounding than everything else combined.
Well, and on that note, who I enjoy watching is Tim Wells.
Yeah,
like Tim Wells, he advertises it. It's almost like his advertisement is such that, this is the tool. Like, like guns and bow and arrows and stuff like that. But this is the real deal. But I think it's, in the eyes of the beholder, as far as hunting goes, I think that pretty secure method is the rifle. But at any rate,
well, I mean, there's two worlds going on there, and the two worlds are absolutely diametrically opposed. And this kind of ties back into trapping as well, where they figure that because they're being archers, that it is giving the animal the most chance, right? That it takes the most skill and all that, but then there's the most wounding. But if you're going to kill as ethically as possible and as reliably as possible, you're going to do it with a rifle. So those two whole ideas are diametrically opposed. It's kind of like a lot of places. I was talking with Mark Charpentier on I think the podcast goes up tomorrow, and he's in New York, and they're not allowed to use snares, not at all. And you talk with some of them over in Michigan, and they can use snares, but they have to be cable restraints. They can't be killing. Well, it's like, how does that work? You know, you're going to kill that
that?
animal.
Where's that, Rich?
They have to be cable restraints. They're not
in which state?
Michigan.
Really?
There's a lot of states that are that way.
Really?
There's a lot of them where they
Wow.
flat out can't use a snare. Like I was talking with Mark, and he does ADC. And so he was talking about squirrels are a big deal. He's just squirrel pay the mortgage a lot every month kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because he's in the Catskills of New York. And of course, that's an upper class area that with lots and lots of acreages and such like. So they have problems with the raccoons and the squirrels. And I says, you can't use a brass snare wire for a squirrel. And he says, no. I says, oh my God. I says, that's going at it the long, hard way. But
exactly,
it was fascinating. Anyway, we've covered all this stuff. Tell us about you. When did you start trapping? Where do you trap? I see some beautiful coyotes behind you there, man. That one over your right shoulder, now that is a stud.
Well, I
love that rough.
I have a really nice lynx here that I kept yet from winter. It's tan. I got a bunch of tan fur there, and then I kept a few back because I want to tan some more.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not just showing you some of the pretty ones that I have, Rich. I'm actually kind of covering up the mess that's on the wall back there. So there's a double whammy there.
It's like watching my set on the TV program over the years. It went from an unpainted wall to a painted wall to now it actually looks like something with the fur and everything hanging in there. Takes time. Everything takes time.
Fur decorates anything that's bad. It can look horrible. Just hang a bunch of nice fur over it. Bang. So looked after. No, when I was a kid, I don't know. I was, the earliest memories that I have, I was fascinated by predators, and born and raised on the farm up in Lacrete, Alberta. We kind of had the wilderness right in our backyard. And the first time that I came and had an encounter with a weasel, it didn't take long after that my mom and dad, they got me a big poster, and it was all the North American fur bearers on there. And I was just like, I can't quite explain to you how I wanted to be close to them. That's all that my impulse was, just that I wanted to be close to them. And so it didn't take long when I was talking to my dad and my uncle one day, and they said, you might be a trapper, Jake. And I'm like, what is that? What does that mean? Well, I might be a trapper, right? I mean, this is brand new stuff. I'm 7, 8, 9 years old. And my uncle said, well, he said, you set a trap and you catch whatever animal you're looking for, and you take it home, and then you skin it and you sell the fur. And I was like, wait a minute. I can go and I can get them, and then I can skin them. I can make dollars. Like, I can actually make some money here. Well, that was it, Rich. After that, I was hooked. Hook, line, and sinker. I was in.
I know the gene pool that you come from up there in that country up there, and hard work is in the DNA there. So work didn't scare you, and the thought that you could make money working at it, yeah, I can believe it.
Yeah, and it took me years and years before I ever had a snowmobile. So, but my dad, he had a couple quarters of land, and the creek was running all the way through it. So, everything up there that comes with the creek. I had we caught fisher, marten, mink, weasel. Once I got a little bit older, I started going after canines, but I mean, jeepers, like as a 12 and 13-year-old trying to set long spring traps and catching coyotes, there was a lot of disappointment. But once I got my hands on some snares and I started going after coyotes, yeah, that took me basically up until, probably 19 years of age. And then I took some time off, started working, and next thing you know, I found my way into Nisku and the oil patch. They got their hooks into me, and the money was good. So I kind of stuck that out. But all the while I was kind of dabbling. Like, I'd go out with my brother. He'd come out for the weekend. We'd go and set a bunch of foothold traps for muskrats and just walk a lake all day, catch a bunch of muskrats. So I'd get out whenever I could. And then A good buddy of mine in BC, he had a trap line. I'd go and hang out with him. And then, you know, kind of two things happened at once. I started holding a resident trapping license because I was running into more and more farmers. You know, all the talk about the coyotes, you know, people were getting tired of the coyotes and the beaver. And it was basically because of that, you know, I got my license. And, you know, the first farmer that I went to, Rich, I've been setting the exact same 2-acre patch of bush for, 5-6 winters now. And I'll take 25 plus coyotes out of that 2 acres every single year. Yeah, and that basically took me to last summer when I got a call. A friend of mine said, hey, there's actually a bunch of people contacted me, and they said that there was an ad in the paper for the county beaver trapping job. And man, when I heard that, I set things in motion instantly. You know, fixed up my resume again, got it to the right people, and did the interviews like pretty quick after. It was about a month after. And yeah, I managed to beat out the class there and got that job. And yeah, with that, I knew that at that point that this was it. Like, this was going to be it for me. Like, there was going to be no turning back. This is it. I'm going to be a trapper 12 months a year. I was scared out of my wits, Rich, because I mean, now what am I doing now? Trapping my way right into the poorhouse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But one thing led to another, and yeah, I started not to ramble on too long here, but yeah,
Have you ever caught yourself yelling at the TV, telling the people that were hunting, fishing, or trapping they were doing it wrong? I know, we all do it. I do it. Well, here's your chance to come out on my trap line with Sandy and I and tell us what we're doing wrong. We are having a contest. We are giving away 3 days worth of trapping out on our trap line with us. All you have to do is get yourself to Grand Prairie, Alberta, and we will take it from there. We'll pick you up, we'll take you out to the trap line, and we will return your frozen carcass or your smiling face to the airport 3 days later. All you have to be is a member of trappinginc.locals.com. Be a supporting member. The draw is on September 1st. It's really, really simple. You go there to trappinginc.locals.com, and the very first post up on the news feed, it tells you how to enter and how to get in on this. We are easygoing. We are going to have a pile of fun. We are looking forward to having some new, fresh faces out on the trap line with us, and you're going to be a star or a guest of an episode of Trapping Inc. Season 8. Okay? Simple, folks. Don't miss out. This is a great trip. Number one thing that gets requested of us is, how can I send my husband trapping with you guys? I'm willing to pay money. Well, maybe I shouldn't be advertising to you. I should be advertising to your wives. Come to trappinginc.locals.com and become a member. Simple. Don't miss out. And now let's get back to today's show.
You know, word got out pretty quick, and so I started getting, you know, some private jobs for animal damage control, especially with the beaver. And you know, there's good business comes with production. You know, if somebody's got beaver problems and you show up there and you can lace the beaver quick, you know, word kind of gets out. So, you know, the county of Wetaskiwin is, I don't know, I think we might be like 150 kilometers wide, Rich. So there's a lot of waterways. Yeah, a lot of waterways here.
We'll get back to that. I want to talk about your ADC work there, but I just want to talk about when I was a kid. Same thing. We had the number 3, number 4, number 5 traps, double spring traps, and all that, and it was tough to get you anything in those. You know, like, and they were tough to set. And when we discovered snares, I went through the whole changeover in traps and everything with the HEDIS, and not even knew it happened because we were so busy snaring, right? You know,
Yeah,
it worked so well. I just to me, that was the most difficult thing ever was to take in, especially when you're a kid. Because
Oh yeah.
I don't know about you, but we didn't know about dirt holes.
No.
No, we didn't know any about that. That pretty much came out of our friends to the south, the dirt holing stuff. We had no idea about that. I could see it working now when I look back at it. I could see it would have worked back then. But I mean, we were mostly, you'd find a dead moose or something, and you'd try and set on a trail or around it with whatever with those traps. And there was a lot
On
of
the cut line where you're driving and such.
yeah,
The whole
yeah,
9 yards. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I see the guys that do that now, Rich, when they, they've got it down to a science. I mean, the distance of the dirt hole
Yep.
to the trap, and they place the thing. I mean, they literally, that animal just comes and steps onto the pan. I mean, there's the guys that do it, and it looks like a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong.
It is. It is. I do it. I do it too. But the whole thing is that when I want to put some fur on the wall to have something to send in and get a check, I hang them snares because, man, I'm gonna I'm gonna clean up.
Yeah. Well, I started doing it with beaver too. Like, I got to be honest. Like, one of the funnest things for me is to take beaver through the ice. I love it, but it's just not feasible. It's just so hard to do. It's not just about trying to earn a living, but it's the time. Like, you put so much time into it, and when you're cutting 2 foot thick ice with your chainsaw, and you got to look after your chainsaw. I mean, but I started like, I would build a just out of rebar. I would build a short frame, and then with a piece on the top, and then I would just put a fence of snares in there. And so basically, instead of how sometimes you get a run that'll go into a lodge, you just don't have that nice perfect funnel that actually takes and fits a conibear. Yep. Like, it'll come in maybe super wide, or they'll have the feed pile like right up against the lodge.
Yep.
So, like, I started, once I realized that, if I could take and build a frame that's 2.5 feet across, hang 4 snares in there, I mean, you didn't have to take and cut them out of the ice too many times without not catching beaver. So, but snaring again, and I think it was my brother that put me onto that, and it works like a damn.
Okay. I've done snaring, but I did it the old traditional way, where with the pole, that you'd ram down, and you'd have
bait pole.
Yeah, you'd have 4 snares off it, and as it would swim around, you'd get caught in it. My biggest problem always was that then they would float up and get froze to the underside of the ice. Like, we don't have deep ponds where I'm at.
Yeah, and you get it cold too.
Oh yeah,
it's cold. You get some decent 30 below weather there, right?
Oh, lots. Yeah. That was always my biggest problem with snaring, was it being caught up and froze to the underside, because doesn't matter what a beaver's worth or whatever. If I'm going to kill it, I'm going to use it. So I mean, I don't want any damage or waste. But that is fascinating. What tell me about those snares then? Is there a particular lock you use? What do you use for cable? What size?
It's what size is it now? The last time I made snares, I made like 500. So it'll take me a few years before I roll through them, Rich. But I believe it's a size down from 1/16. Does that sound right?
3 down to 3/64?
Maybe. I believe so. And then just with a simple cam. And it's obviously it's a single use snare. But the thing is, like, I built them big enough so that when I open the loop completely, I just affix the end loop of the snare right to the ready rod frame.
Yeah.
And I really found that worked really good for me. Like, I tried doing baited poles too, but I don't know. I never gave them a pole that they liked.
Yeah.
I don't know what the deal was there, but
you gotta have a dry pole that everything is mounted to, and then you take and wire on a couple of chunks of green around in the middle, right? And so you have snares above, snares below, and supposedly, my biggest problem was that invariably you'd catch them by the tail, or you'd catch them by a foot or whatever. So now that snare is this long, instead of his neck being in it or whatever, and then they could float up and they'd freeze. I mean, one way or the other, they're drowning, whether you get them around the neck or however you get them. But if you got him on a front foot or whatever, and he floated up, well, then
like, I've hauled tons of ice home. I have, but it might not be before. By the time you work everything out, and where is he, and getting your hole managed to take and get him out, invariably you're leaving fur in ice chunks that you're leaving behind just to try to get them up above and out of the water and the ice. I know what you mean. It's exactly right. Just because it's a $25 beaver, you know, I don't want to leave bits and pieces behind and make it a $20 or a $15 beaver.
Well, I mean, the other thing is though, is those beaver in the winter, that their caster are worth a lot more because they are full. You know, they are full. But now if you're doing this ADC for the county, you're doing a lot of open water stuff because that's when they're causing problems, right? We got a pond in a ditch or whatever, and the beaver's causing troubles, and you walk up to it. Tell me what goes through your mind, what your plans are, what you do first.
Well, I got to be honest with you, Rich. The number one thing for me these days is not just animal damage control, but everything that I do is is having an awareness of all the landowners, and pet potential. And I mean, there's like, I used to be a lot more efficiency oriented and production oriented and so on and so forth. But I just turned 50 here a few days ago, Rich, and life is just too short to have unnecessary, to be dealing with too many non-target catches. And back to your question, when I show up to a spot, my go-to is obviously the conibear. I mean, the conibear, and especially nowadays, they make them with those offset jaws. I mean, you can catch a beaver, you can get a bad catch on a beaver, and you can hold them by the tail, by a foot. I mean, I've caught them across the top of the head. I mean, but do you
have a favorite brand? Or
the number one reason why I like Belial is because they make the nice stands for them, and those stabilizer stands, and I use them almost religiously. But by the time I figured out that I was losing so many of them, you'd catch a beaver and they'd rummage around a little bit, and I'm going from trap to trap to trap to trap, and if I pull a trap, not always would I use a stabilizer, but all of a sudden I realized that, wait a minute, I got to run my cable down through the bottom, that set of arms that's horizontal in the stand, just run that cable restraint off and run it through. I mean, but yeah, I was losing these stands. And so working for the county, they didn't have to buy them. They just took and built me a whole bunch. But I was listening to one of your other podcasts there. I think it was Belanger. I forget who it was. Belanger, an ADC trapper, Ontario, maybe. And he was talking about getting to a spot and whether or not people had tried this, that, or the other thing. Like, I've seen it all too, one guy comes and says, well, we've shot all the beaver. I think there's just one left. And, you show up and you catch 4 maybe, or, but be that as it may, I don't always get it exactly the way that I want it. Like, sometimes dams got to go in the air and you show up after. But one thing that I do know is, for the most part, if a dam has to get blown or taken out prior to me being able to go and get my stuff done, if there's a healthy family there, it doesn't take them long to take and get that baby back up.
Oh, no. I did. So last summer I did in August. Yeah. Over a year ago now, I guess. In August, we blew 18, like alongside the road, and that on my trap line has a bunch of oil roads on it. I can't trap alongside the oil roads because your stuff gets stolen, right? And so I usually shoot beaver in the spring for them, but that's a very limited way. Unless you're going to sit on a dam for every night for a week, you're not going to come anywhere close to getting everything that's in there. But when you blow them, you can sit there and you can kill them all in no time flat. Because they're out that night and every one of them is out working, right? Yeah. And so my biggest difficulty with what we did there was that they had a guy come in and dynamite 18 dams. Well, I can only sit one a night, kind of thing, right? Yeah. So I sat one a night for the next 4 or 5 nights. But by the time night 4 is coming around, they're just about got the pond back. You know, like, I mean, they've got her dammed up, and the water's coming back if there's water to come. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. But that's kind of the go-to one for me. Like I like being able to take and set to, you know, breach a dam. I mean, you don't have to take and make a lot of water run, and they want to stop water. And it seems to me like sometimes, like, the more rain, the better it works. It's kind of weird, because you'd think, like, with more rain, you know, they've got more security, but it's almost like their instinct tells them, hey, you know what, like, we got to capture all the water, right? But at any rate, the one thing that I'm kind of hesitant of is, if I have a beaver pond, especially like working through the summer months, once all the waterfowl is out, I really try to, you know, you kind of have to measure what your dam site is actually looking like with respect to whether or not you're going to have birds coming and going. Because if you have a big pond with lots of waterfowl in it, you could really be making a set that's going to take and give you just a lot of grief with birds interrupting your trapping. And so, you know, if it's not a fit there, then you know, making my own lure, it's kind of like reloading your own ammo for your hunting rifle. I mean, when you make your own lure and you see how it's like an automatic. Like, I don't know, but the you know, I take the casters and the oil glands.
Yep.
Kind of a friend of mine there, Stan Forsyth, he buys a lot of the oil glands from me. And but when I make my own lure, I'll take the caster, and what I try to do, like, I try not to just grind an entire caster. Like, I'll take a caster and I'll cut up half of it into small pieces, and I'll scrape the other half. You just get a little bit better of a more dense, concentrated caster based, and it doesn't get so stringy in the food processor that I stole out of my wife's kitchen.
I know.
She didn't want it back when I started using it.
No.
Go figure.
But you had to buy her a new one, didn't you? I've been there, done that.
Yeah. She got a better one.
Yeah.
But and then I'll just put the I'll put the oil from the oil glands in there and a little bit of glycerin, and man, it's like taking candy from a baby. Like, they just come. So, but it's kind of a, you know, when I spend my own money using my own casters, I try to be, I'm pretty selfish with it. I try to make sure that you know, if I'm going to take and make, you know, not sell my casters and make my own lure,
yeah,
I got to catch beaver instantly, and they usually do. So you just put the effort into your set to make sure wherever you're trying to guide them into, you just make your set accordingly. But they can't say no. They're such a territorial creature.
Oh, they are. And see, that's one of the things. Like, first time you ever watch a beaver react to a caster set, you're going to be astounded. You'd think it was a hound dog, that because he can smell so good. You'll be just amazed at how far away he picks up that strange smell, and he comes in and he'll be popping his jaws and everything else. And the second thing is, I would love to show that to absolutely everybody out there, that ADC people doing their job. You know, there's some places they have to be non-lethal. They have to move them and release them. Well, as soon as you put that strange beaver in another beaver's water, what do you think happens? One of them lives and one dies. So the killing of beaver is still done. You just didn't do it. You know, that's what people don't understand, is that how territorial they are. Exactly. Go ahead. I interrupted, but I always wander down rabbit holes anyway.
I'm gonna add to that, Rich. But then I get a real kick out of using the foothold traps. I bought a couple of MB 750s, and you know, I'll give you just a short story. Last fall, I ended up getting called. It was getting really late, and all the water was kind of getting iced up, and we had beavers coming to a culvert. And as soon as I arrived on this location, I took one look at that beaver lodge, and I knew, you know, there's a handful of beaver here minimum. And so it ended up that I put a single trap out right at the culvert, and I was catching a beaver. The first 2 nights I caught beaver, but I was losing time. And so then I figured, well, you know something, I'm going to try and do a double set. So what I did is I put 2 traps side by side, and I staked them in. So the idea was, what I was going to try to do is try to catch a beaver and hold them literally right on that location. And don't you know, the first night I showed up, I had 2 beavers laying side by side. And but then what ended up happening was I ended up getting, because as you know, they're either carrying mud or they're carrying sticks, and if they're carrying it out in front of them, they'll trigger those conifers occasionally. Yep. And I mean, if they get whacked on the nose, it's an instant education. I don't know that they're putting something together like, hey, you know what, there's a trapper trying to trap me. That's not what it is. But what they do know is it's trouble. It's trouble. They don't like it. They don't like what it felt like, and they're not going close to it, right? So don't you know it, that the ice ended up it froze up, and I never caught that beaver last fall. And it was like for me, it was literally like a sense of failure. Like, you know what I mean? Like a job not done. You know, you didn't get it done. And so anyway, so I went back there right away in the springtime now, and I figured, well, let's see what happens here. Maybe, you know, he had 6 months to sleep on it. Maybe he's calmed down now. I'll tell you, Rich, I showed up there, made a nice little set, you know, nothing wrong, corralled him nice and perfect. And that beaver did not go anywhere near that trap.
Yeah.
He remembered. They got a really good memory. He did not forget. And so then the challenge for me was the water depth, because I knew I was going to catch him. I mean, but what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to set a foothold and not have him be able to be in deep enough water.
Right.
So I just ensured that my weight, I added a little bit of weight to a cable weight, and I had to put my hip waders on to get it far enough in. And I put my lure out, and I got him the first day. But yeah, he made me work for him. That's for sure. He made me work for him.
You know, whenever, like I hate it when a dam gets opened, or whenever there's water running over the dam, because then automatically I go to the foothold, because they're always, it's like that old saying about you know, do beavers really understand what's going on when water's running over a dam, or is it just, I think not, you know, or absolutely not is what goes through their head, which,
right.
You know, so they always got a mouthful of stuff, right? And I mean, how many times have you went and you had that body grip or the conibear there, and it's not even set off yet, and it's packed into the dam, you know, like, I mean, they're pushing it up carefully, and all they understand, I don't know that they understand, but they don't even set it off. So whenever there's water running over, I would sooner have a foothold there, just get over that problem. Now, also on a crossover though, when the water runs over, you know, you got the crossover, and that's where he's going to come up and he's going to go over. I'll set my trap down on halfway down the dam on the other side. Now, who was it that told me about that? I think it was Gordy. Gordy Clausen, Trapper Gord. And he told me, he says, that's the place to be. He says, because when a beaver swims up, he's looking, and he says, whether it's a wolf or a bear, whatever, waiting to grab him, they're going to be on the backside. So when he goes over, he said he goes in a hurry. And he says, that's why you should have it down where they can't see it from the water level. And I've made that mistake a couple times where you could still see the top of the trap, you know, from the water level, and never catch anything. Move it down to where it's out of sight. And he says, when they go over in a hurry, because that's the big danger area for them. Made sense to me.
I was at I had a spot that I was trapping here just a few days ago, and it was exactly as you describe it, Rich, but they had 2 spots where they were going over the dam. And what ended up happening was, when I pulled up with my truck, so the dam was basically right against the road, and I pulled up with my truck, and the beaver is right there in the water. So he's got nowhere to go. He's got to get out of this water, and he's got to get over top of that dam on one of these 2 runs. And my gears started turning, Rich, and my truck came to a stop. I hit the flashers, I stepped out, grabbed the trap on the fly. And what's going through my mind is I'm going to catch this beaver while I'm holding this trap. You know what I mean? Like he's right here. Like, why don't, you know, I'm not driving around with the gun. I very, very occasionally, right? But I'm like, I'm going to take and wrap this thing right on this guy's head. It's, you can call it what you want, but it's maybe not a common practice. But I mean, it's opportunity, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anyway, so here I am. And you know what beaver dams are like, right? Here I am stumbling around, and I get to the first slide. And as I was going into the ditch where his first crossing was, he submerged. And so I'm like, okay, well, I got to get all the way across the dam now. So it was short, and I got to take and cut him off. Well, what ended up happening, so I'm setting this Belial as I'm stumbling around, moving across the dam there. I managed to take and get it set, but at one point you got to stop to take and set the dog on the trigger, right?
Yeah.
And just when I look up, I'm 12 feet from where he's going to cross, and our eyes met, and that beaver comes shooting up. And so I started trying to take and move forward, but he beat me. But that beaver come flying over top of that dam. And when he leapt off the top, like instead of diving straight into the water, I had him so scared that he come off the top of that dam and he went up into the air, airborne. Like a javelin, he took and hit the water like a fish.
Oh, no way.
But I had visions of literally, I wanted to get out in front of him and throw that trap on his head. And I mean, I would have hung on. I might have ended up in the water with him. I don't know. But yeah, it was, I don't know. Maybe not for everybody, but
I want to hear about you doing that sometime. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I miss the best stuff, Rich. I miss the best stuff with my camera. I mean, I just,
you know, it's if you watch some of the shows, right? They're like the big stuff, like on Discovery Channel and all that. I forget what they're called, Yukon Trappers and all that kind of stuff. But there's so much drama made up. I mean, they have to make up drama to, you know, they're producing, I don't know, anywhere from 16 to 23 episodes a year. And, you know, most of them are an hour long. So there's so much drama that's got to be injected, and they make it up. And I've talked to some of the guys there, you know, and they get paid to, you know, follow a tree on the camera and stuff like that kind of stuff. But with us, and it sounds like with you too, when you're really doing it, when you're really living the life, the camera's never on when stuff goes sideways. Yeah. It's never on. And your first instinct always is to, you know, make sure everything's safe and everybody's good before it gets turned on. You know, you don't have time for that kind of stuff. You know, Sandy and I've been in situations where, you know, machine broke through or something, you know, broke through the ice and all that. You ain't got many minutes before it's a really, really, really bad day, you know? So what's more important? You know, you just take care of stuff. And in honest truth, Jake, I never think of the camera at that moment. When something goes sideways, I never think of it. You know? Well,
I mean, it'd end up exactly right. Like I've done it too, you know, trapping by myself out by Catamount, and then I cross on a mountain stream, and then going in, I look behind me and I'm like, oh, my little shelf there that I crossed over, because the water recedes or it finds a different way to flow. And then all of a sudden you're just literally going over like a little dam of ice, right?
Yeah.
So I went in the one time and it broke, a big part of it broke behind me. So when I came back, now I'm dealing with, it's almost dark, right? And so I parked my quad and I go and I look, and when I'm looking underneath, I'm like, wow, jeepers, I think there's enough. I think there's enough. I can get it done, right? And if I had it to do over again, what I would have done is I would have looked out in front of me for something to take a winch off of. But because that whole area was a large gravel bed, Rich, and the nearest tree was 300 feet away, you know, 200 feet away. There's no way, even with the rope with the 100-foot rope that I had and my winch line, like I wasn't getting no trees. So anyway, I go over, the back end breaks through, and it literally has my quad pointing straight up at the sky. And very, very lucky for me was that there was a huge log that had frozen in the ice. So I was able to take and carve out enough on that log that I was able to take and affix rope and then my winch line to take and, put enough torque on my quad to just walk it out.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad once I had the winch attached, but you're absolutely right. It was at night. It was 15, 20 below. And it was like, for me to take and pull out a camera at that time, approaching dark, would have been fine if somebody would have been there with the camera in their hand.
That's
Go ahead,
just it.
Video away, but some work needs to get done here.
Well, yeah. And I mean, so you take time, pull out the camera and talk about it or whatever. And then things do get worse from there. You lose the quad or something. Then all you can think about, well, was that 10 minutes used with the camera was what cost me a quad? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. The unplanned hiking, Rich. Unplanned hiking. I don't know. Like, I'm always sort of set up for it, but not really a go-to for me.
Well, I know where I'm at. Like, I mean, I don't carry snowshoes now. And I suppose that's a bad habit, but I've always got a snowmobile trail. But, if you happen to be, if it's warm, you can sink in that snowmobile trail. 10 kilometers could be a long, long ways. Or if you got, 4, 5, 6 inches of powder on top of it, and you walk back over that again, that, and sometimes, I can be 25, 26 kilometers away from the cabin kind of thing. And that's a long, tough week. I had a breakdown last year. It's on one of the episodes, episode 8. I had, I guess it's common. I was always told that Skidoo with their pogo suspension on the front end was bulletproof. Okay. Well, I guess there's a ring in there that your tie rod end goes into.
Okay.
And it controls your skis, right? Your steering of your skis. And I guess they break all the time. And my machine has like 14,000 kilometers on it. So, it can't be all the time. It's the first time it ever broke on me. But I was 12K from the nearest road when it happened. I had a piece of rebar with me that, I lots of times I'll just drive a piece of rebar alongside of a trail and I'll hang a link snare off it. Links don't care about steel whatsoever.
Right.
And I had one of them and some wire, and I got myself out of there. But you'd only turn a little tiny bit at a time because it was because they not only when they turn, they not only turn direction, but they also rotate. Like your tips rotate as in elevation as well. So it was like a 42-point turnaround to get it turned around there on the on the line where it broke down, and then I got back out and I went back alongside the road, and then things got worse after that. But that's another story. But at least, I mean, I got back to the road where a guy would had a chance of maybe flagging somebody down, but not in the dark. In the dark is a whole nother world, isn't it?
Yeah, it's everything gets a little tougher. The thing is, so I run tracks, the Tattoo 4S tracks on my quad, on my 700 Grizzly in the winter, and I just leave them on. And it's for a variety of reasons, but basically the terrain that I'm in there, I need them. Like I have actually left my wheels on my quad an entire winter. The snow conditions were just never really there. And then especially if you're out regularly, you've kind of got a track. But for the most part, like some hillsides, some really steep hills, they'll stay just rock covered all winter. Some open water crossing. So it's a good application for tracks. And I'll tell you, as I'm watching the kilometers tick by, as I get further and further and deeper and deeper and deeper, I'm just trying to be really, really careful with my machine.
Well,
very careful. No, nothing's getting rammy. I need everything to stay in one piece.
You get to that point. I mean, after a while, you get old enough that you realize that one, you're not immortal, and two, everything breaks eventually. And you just have to pay attention to that kind of stuff. We run the Argo, of course, for the first couple months of the season, and then once Lynx opens, then I have a much longer run. I can get down through the south that's where most of my Lynx net is. And so then I'm, you're doing 180, 200, over 200 kilometers in a day. Well, I can't do that with the Argo. If I were to build another cabin on my trap line, I would be fine. I could stick with the Argo. And the Argo is just, I mean, it's the ultimate for me anyway. I don't ever have to worry about anything. And most times when you fall through the ice or whatever, you're just a cork. No big deal. There's been a couple of situations where it fell in sideways or hung up on a stump or something, and you get water into the engine area and all that, but it is amazing. Like I will take in our cabin is on a lake, and I will take and I'll be careful driving that Argo on that thing until December kind of thing. And then I'll come back to the cabin one day and there's like little pike fishing out there, and somebody will have driven a Ford diesel out across the lake.
Yeah.
where I fell through 2 weeks before,
Yeah. Wow. 180 kilometers. So how many townships are you trapping there?
Four.
Rich? Oh, okay.
4, but I go back and forth and round,
Right.
and like, I mean, everything's big loops, but there's a lot of this depending on country. Like not all of your country is productive. You get the big black spruce muskegs. You'll have cats go through them in the wintertime. Nothing else pretty much other than that. So you go and hit all these different ridges and that. And when the animals hit those high ridges, they travel on them. Even though a ridge might be, within sight of another ridge, they'll probably never get over to the other ridge. This is all stuff I learned because I'd never had a trapline before that had as much muskeg as this, right? And so you get up and you travel these ridges and you come back around on the next ridge and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of that. So yeah, I have over 300 kilometers of trail,
Wow.
and yeah,
Wow, there you go.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's how you end up with, I get 14,000 K on the one snowmobile, and I think I got 5 or 6,000 K on the other. And
Yeah. Yeah. I was just in the trails meeting there that Tech Cole puts on there for the Catamount area every summer. Did I see you got drawn for sheep there, Rich?
No, not this year. No.
Oh, okay.
I have been before. Yes.
Okay. And yeah, they were talking about trails, and the thing is on the north, well, actually it's the northwest half of the line that basically follows the road up to Hinton there. We've had like it's all either mining, well, it was active mining or reclamation, and so we just don't have the means to be able to go through there with an ATV. But I always keep poking away at those questions, like if there's ever an opportunity that I can take and possibly somehow get back in there. I mean, wolves are it for me. Like that is my number one. I love the wolves, and there's just nothing like them. Everything about it, and that would just get me just a little bit closer to the larger groups of wolves that come in and out of that part of that whole coal stream down in through there. And but yeah, that's it's tough, right? It's hard for them to take and give the land back, and I don't know.
Well, I'm kind of involved in that. I'm a director for Wild Sheep Alberta, and
there's a rep on there from there. Yeah,
I sit on ACA for my first meeting. Sandy is actually the treasurer for ACA, but we'll be, and that's one of the issues that you're talking about there is, you can't just open up that area for one person to use a quad. You open it for everybody. And
well, that's the thing. And that's exactly what, and it was a noted point. I absolutely understood it. They said, you got to remember, Jake, that if we, and like, cause they were empathetic to me, let's say, they're like, yeah, man, jeepers, we know that's, you got a lot of land back there that technically it's our RFMA. But they said the reality is if we find that spot where we can get you to take and unload, and here's a good way for you to take and get through and then be back in there and have a bait for wolves. They said the reality is now here's a set of tracks, and there's a regular set of tracks. So that's your
RFMA there?
Mm-hmm.
And what does it encompass? Are we talking like Spinks Creek, Greg?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's classified as a FLUZ, isn't it? An FLUZ? Forest land use something zone.
To my understanding, what they have mined and what they've reclaimed, the area behind there up against the first peaks of the Rockies is open for hunting, open for trapping.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most cases, most situations, trappers have the right of access. So that like that's one of the things that we do with wild sheep is pay trappers to trap wolves. Okay, sheep wolves, and wolves that would be eating sheep, and you would qualify in there extremely well. But trappers are the only ones that can like travel up into those areas, into the mountains, using a snowmobile and that kind of stuff, or a quad. But the problem that you have there is they haven't turned that lease back yet. So it's actually the trespass that's the problem, right?
As far as
why you can't cross those reclaimed mines.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's trespass. Correct. It's not got anything to do with the government. It's got to do with trespass on their lease.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's and like I said, I understand it, Rich, but that's the panel, and Chris Watson, he was in on the conversation, and he said that he was going to reach out to me and talk some more about it. But it's a good panel of people to at least, you got to let it be known, there's a trapper that's actually interested. And then, talking to all these other trappers, Rich, if I digress a bit.
No, go ahead.
Like oftentimes, like I go down Elk River Road in the wintertime, especially when that road is decent in the wintertime. And what I did is I reached out to all of the RFMA senior holders down that line. My curiosity was at the possibility of trapping my way in to when I was getting to Catamount. Okay. And I probably talked to, I probably got half of them on the phone, and they were all good. They were all good to talk to, but they were either, they either had junior partners, but most of them, they were pretty down just about the fact of all the forestry that had gotten done. But yeah, that was basically my idea though. Like, give me somebody that's got wolves. I'm already coming down this road. If I gotta start at 3 a.m, get there while it's still dark, and go in and hit a good bait on another RFMA, like I was all over that. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that are pretty down there just about the forestry, and we've been 1872 has been impacted very significantly because we literally have the first peaks of the Rockies on the west side of us,
right?
And then off to the east, it has been logged extensively prior to 2010, and then now what they've done is they've done a lot of logging to the north. Yeah. So the marten, especially the marten population, you've almost kind of got a trapped population of genetics there. So the old days of it was kind of well known. It was a really good producing marten line, but they don't. I'm sure all about the marten. They hate crossing open country.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So. Like there was a study done. What? And the number of studies that are done have been done on any of our fur bearers is pathetic. Like that's one of the things. Like you realize why we have a Fisher quota in Alberta? It's based on a study out of Pennsylvania in 1969. Unbelievable. But one of the few marten studies that I've ever been able to find, they talk about how once you got an opening that got to be 30 meters, whether it was road or pipeline or whatever, that was as physical a boundary to a marten as a wall. And it's true. When you watch, you get to know your line, and you spend your time on your line, and that, and you don't see them crossing. You just won't never see a marten cross a lake. You'll see Fisher cross it all the time, but not a marten. And same thing with the roads and the pipelines and all that kind of stuff. It's really it's astounding.
Yeah.
But there I went down a rabbit hole about studies. One thing, like right now, I know that we're trying to deal with what we're going to do, or how we're going to turn back those leases, right? And what's going to be done with them.
Okay.
And there's a big push by a quad group, like ATVers. They want to have a series of courses through there and trails and all. And I don't want that, and I mean, I'm not saying that my decision is what's important. Everybody feels that way, probably the biggest issue we got is that there are so many hunters that want it to be turned back for hunting. And I'm not sure we can do that, because as soon as we turn it back for one, then it's turned back for everybody. And, you know, if you have unlimited hunting there where, you know, the people can go there at any time of the year, and you know what it's like. It's like, it would be like going to Elk Island Park. You know, it's a similar situation, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That might be one of the problems that we've created there by, you know, having the mines and the reclamation, is that it'll may never be for hunting again. I don't know, but that's weird. That's weird. There's got to be some way. I mean, it's all about the trespass is what your problem is. Yeah.
Well, and you know, I've had, you know, they've been nice enough, you know, I've done the orientation for the mine multiple times, just to go in there and sit in on meetings, and they've been good, you know, and I've met, you know, I've met people that have actually now since come and gone that don't work there no more. And well, now the mine is shut right down for the last couple of years. And I've ran into people with varying opinions there on what they should do, or what they could do, or what they feel needs to get done. And I think that, you know, I mean, that whole habitat that has been kind of created there now, it presents quite a quandary on how do they go about, you know, do we give some back? At what level can we give it back? You know, I've even heard, you know, if they open it right up, I mean, they've moved so much. What do? They move like 98% of dirt just to get at 2% coal. So, you know, there's that end of it, you know, do they have loose material? Could somebody get hurt? And would they, it's kind of
some of that stuff is just made up BS just to keep, like, I mean, governments,
there's that too.
Yeah. The governments are great at talking. You know, and you said you've had great conversations, and they talk and they talk. Well, that's all they'll do is talk. It was really funny. I've been involved on different organizations and AgPack, and was a precursor or two before what's AgMag now, or was it AgMag then and it's AgPack now? I forget. Anyway, the stuff we were arguing about 14 years ago, we're still arguing about today. Like, if you want to keep talking, that's all it's ever going to amount to is talk. You know, like,
that's exactly right.
Yeah, no, it is. And the thing about it is government is immortal. The government is immortal. They lose today, they'll win 100 years from now. It doesn't matter. You won't be around 100 years from now. The government is immortal, and they take the long game on everything. And I often think that's why they do these things, like having these user groups and all that, because they get this all talking together. And invariably, they have so many people in the user group. You got everybody from the beef producers to leaseholders to people who are growing crops, to the municipalities, the trappers, the hunters, the fishermen, the Trout Unlimited, and invariably then cliques form within the group, and one fights against this one, and this one fights. They don't need to say anything. They got us fighting against one another. You know. Well,
and then everything is in application process.
Yeah.
Like, it's in application process this year. It was last year. It was 5 years ago. And I've gone to those meetings for many, many years now. And there's a lot of it that is the same as it was in 2011, 2012. But
Dave Kay told me he stood up at the Alberta Trappers Association general meeting. And this would have been 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. He stood up and said, we're going to get rid of quota. Quota just doesn't make sense, you know, and he gave all the reasons. And he's right, because quota has never, ever been changed from the day they brought it in. And quota was supposed to be a control knob for fluctuating population numbers, right? So you'd have to adjust the knob every now and then. You know, sometimes we're taking too much quota, sometimes we're not taking enough quota. You'd have to adjust it. It's never been adjusted, never. All the time that the 4 animals that we got quota on has never been adjusted. So, and he stood up at the general meeting, annual general meeting of the ATA, and said, we're going to get rid of quota. Nothing has happened. You know?
Well, and then the governments change every 4 years, Rich. So now you got all new heads that are sitting in there. So there's part of that yet too, right? So if they make some headway.
Well, we've got a wonderful minister now, one who actually, Jason Nixon is our minister for whatever they call it now. Fish and Game I call it Fish and Game. It was AEP or
Environment
whatever.
Parks.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Yeah. Anyway, we have a wonderful minister. He actually wants to be there. And that, to me, that's awesome. He's an outdoorsman, and he takes his kids out and all that kind of stuff. That's awesome. And I've spoke with him, and you know, there is frustration, you know, like, I mean, because he says things don't move as fast as he wants to, but mostly because he's the figurehead and gets to do the talking and all that. But you know, the people who shuffle the paper can make things go as fast or as slow as they want to. And you know, so you end up with those people who have been there for forever, the bureaucrats, you know, that have been there for forever, and they don't change every 4 years.
Hey folks, Rich here with some exciting news from trappinginc.com. We were listening when you said you wanted more clothing, and we heard you loud and clear. We've expanded our clothing line, more colors, men's, ladies, and children's sizes, more variety. Living off grid gives more time for the creative juices to flow. New humorous observations are added weekly, as well as our classic Trapping Inc. logo. We have joined forces with TeePublic. You can find our TeePublic storefront from the store page on trappinginc.com. Just go to www.trappinginc.com/shop and just scroll down to find the link for our Trapping Inc. storefront. Or you can go to teepublic.com and enter Trapping Inc. TV in the search bar at the top. Check it out. Big sales every month, and you can save up to 35%. Don't miss out. Get your favorite gear today. And now let's get back to today's show.
You know?
That's true. That's true. Yeah, they stay there. They keep working the background.
But what a cool thing, though. Now, let's get back to trapping, though. What a cool thing, because your wolves on your yeah. Hey, I'm all over. God, I'm a squirrel on crack. You know, I'm everywhere. But what a cool thing, though. Your wolves on that reclamation, that'd be like dirt holing coyotes on the prairie, man, because they are all over that. You know, they're not just strictly in trees or anything else, right?
Yeah. It's you know, I'll tell you, the first wolf that I caught there, Rich, I had a bait, I had a roadkill deer hanging in a tree, and I had a trail camera right in front of it. And I leave my cameras out all year. So anything that comes, it's amazing how many ungulates love to come to bait areas. I don't know what it is. I mean, they smell it, they come, they check it out. But I had a camera there, and a wolf came in, and he was a wolf that, in my estimation, he was at the end of his life cycle. He was still in good shape, but he had one eye was missing. His teeth were just completely ragged. And, but at any rate, the first picture I got of this wolf is he came in, he latched onto that deer, and he had him on a dead pole. Like, that's the first photo that I got of him.
Oh, cool picture, man.
Yeah, it was a bit blurry, but I kind of got it. He didn't like what was going on. He wanted to just grab and run, right?
Yeah.
But at any rate, he couldn't get it off. I hung it up really good, and so he started feeding, and he stayed literally right underneath that deer, and he stayed there for. It wasn't 48 hours, but it was close. Now the downside was that what I also had there is I had a pail, and it had a 3-year-old a bait in it, like a beaver. And what did he do is he managed to take and figure out how to get what he could out of it, and he rolled in it. So he wasn't wasn't very appealing to the nose when I finally got him. But anybody that's gone after wolves, sooner or later you'll catch one like that.
Most of them smell so awful to begin with. Like, I mean, oh my God. Sometimes when you take and have them tanned, like you're talking about that, they come back and it's like it's a different color of wolf. That's how dirty he was. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this wolf, he ended up, he finally ended up kind of leaving his little spot. I got like 500 pictures of him, and he finally took and wandered around, and you know, he went just a short distance and followed a trail, and I had him right away. And so I mounted him. And the really cool thing about this wolf was, you know, he gets white, same as we do. You know what I mean? I from what the sense that I get is he was once a typical gray, but he was near white. You know, he's got a little bit of gray salt and pepper across his back, but other than that, he's almost
he's an old
white.
dog. Yeah. It would have been cool to age him. You know,
got a skull still. I have never done anything with the skull. It's still in the freezer. So
it's usually like one little tooth in the back that they take an age from, but So he was starving to death, and he didn't have enough teeth anymore.
Well, no, I think he was like in that time he was actually still healthy, but the sense that I got was that he was eking out a life on the perimeter, right? I mean, wolves kill wolves. I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, if he runs into his brethren, like, he's gone.
Yep.
But I think it's just because the nature of the congestion of ungulate populations, just right tight in that spot, you know, that valley system there where all the coal and the reclamation, the elk and the sheep and the deer.
The elk are just phenomenal there.
Yeah. So he was managing to eke out a living there, but I don't know what would have been left of him. You know, I see guys, they catch wolves with mange. Like, I don't think he was like a season away of running into something that was going to finish him off. He was he was old. Basically,
he'd become like a coyote, and he had to scavenge off whatever the pack left, and that kind of thing. Yeah. You know,
just a total prize for me though. Like, this total prize.
Oh, absolutely. That's cool. I love the story too. And I got to see the picture sometime, but I mean, this is one of the things I was talking about with trappers, and people would ask about how can you trap? Well, there are 4 ways an animal can die. You know, he can starve to death. He can die of disease. He can get ate by something, or he can die in my trap. You take and Google, or
you can die of exposure.
You take and Google how many animals ever die of old age. And the studies that I've read said that the number isn't significant.
There's no old folks home. There's no retirement lodge for them to enter into.
When you talk about exposure happens when they're in poor condition. You know, that's they're starving to death, or the disease or whatever is run down. Exposure is just the final nail in the coffin. Yeah. But that's the 4 ways they can die, and none of them are pleasant. Yeah. You know, I mean, I've caught a lot of animals, and when my time comes, you know, do I want to take 6 months to die from cancer or whatever, or do I want, 2 minutes in the conibear? Well, I'll take the conibear, thanks.
It's amazing. Like, I run into so many people that either, you know, their uncle trapped, or their grandfather trapped, or their brother or something. And I find, Rich, that, you know, people that either know you or know of you especially, but that would never, you know, think of hunting or trapping, let's say. It's really pleasant that I find when they give themselves to having a conversation, and they very quickly realize that the last person that wants, like, let's say in this case, a fur bearer species to not exist anymore, the last person is the trapper.
Yeah.
Once they enter into that conversation and they realize, oh, wait a minute, you know, something, there's some good when you have that kind of a steward of the land that's out there dealing with said marten, wolf, fish, or otter populations.
You know, the thing that once you get people that you can talk to, and if they will actually listen, if their ears are actually open, as my grandma used to say, are your ears open now? And, you know, she paying attention, if they want to actually listen. Mother Nature is cruel. You know, populations build up until they starve to death or get disease, and then they crash down to enough to start it all over again. All we're trying to do is kind of clip some of those tops off and take care of, you know, use what's going to be wasted otherwise. You know, people talk about what an area is like when it's not trapped, you know, and I had a prime example with this last trap line when I bought it. It hadn't been trapped for probably 10, 12 years, not well, put it that way. Mm-hmm. And looking at the reports, I think there was a bunch of falsified reports. So it even longer it had been where, you know, the old fella got sick, and I think his son then just started falsifying the fur reports or whatever. But anyway, the balance was so out of whack on that trap line. There wasn't a cat that wasn't under 24, 25 pounds. They were every one of them mature. The fish were all giant, and I catch, you know, 18, and my quota of 18 fisher was nothing. I'd have like 7 marten in the time that I caught 18 fisher, you know, but the big predators were what was doing well, and I had hardly, like with the lynx, hardly a female. They were all big males. So I mean, what's happening is of course the big predators are cleaning up on everything else. The trap line probably wasn't far away from a crash. Those big predators were going to crash, and then things would rebuild, right? And for a single trapper to make a dent in it, I mean, that's probably the best part about our system with our RFMAs is that, I have 4 townships. How big is your area?
3.5 townships.
3.5 townships.
Yeah.
How big a dent do you think that you make in the animals there?
Well, we can take and clean out all the wolves, but because the wolf population on the outside,
yep,
they just all come flooding back in. So that is kind of a story in and of itself. The marten population as it is right now is, and at the same time as I say that they're kind of trapped in there, it's kind of you keep going in every year and you just keeping your eye on them, but
yep,
have absolutely no interest in over trapping them.
No.
And then the lynx, the thing that I haven't done, we can take, I think it's 2 per township. So it's 7 lynx that we can take there. And I took 4 last year, but because I wasn't spending enough time there where I can at least ensure that I'll be able to retrieve that animal, because everything eats the lynx. I shot 3 lynx and I caught 1 in a wolf snare. So like I'm almost kind of catching enough lynx that I'm happy with outside of going after them. Now, if I would take my quota in lynx there, as long as I would know that I'm not going to be there for 5 or 7 days at a time.
The whole problem with things like lynx quota is that lynx are very, very their population fluctuates with the snowshoe hare.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's 2 years behind it every time.
Yeah.
And when you take a look at we have lynx quota right across Alberta, and you take a look at the number of lynx that go to market, to the auction, we never ship 10% of the available quota. We never ship 10%. And so that goes to tell you what quota means. And I have since I got this new trap line, and I mean, I was kind of started with this unsullied slate and everything. I have trapped everything to my fullest extent every year. I have 300 boxes out for marten and fisher. They're not all loaded out every time. I move them around, that kind of stuff. Over 100 and some pens for snare pens for lynx, that kind of stuff. And I trap it hard every year, and my numbers are good every year. I mean, it's
good for you. Do you not have a lot of activity like on the perimeter from the other RFMAs, do you think, or what's going on around you, do you think?
Well, 2 of my neighbors, Peavine settlement is one neighbor to the south, and Gift Lake is another neighbor to the east. And so there's not a lot of trapping goes on in the settlement.
Oh, okay.
Like those are Métis reserves, and so not a lot of trapping goes on there. The physical size of it, 4 townships. I'm a perfect square, so it's really easy for to get around that. But I have one road alone. The one road alone, I have over 42 kilometers of a road on my trap line. Where it hits the trap line, comes in, goes around. Then there's all the side roads now, because it's the Seal Lake oil field. It's all
Seal Lake. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all oil sands, like deep oil sands. So it's not SAGD. It's similar to SAGD, but they re-inject the what's it called? The clear volatile condensate, the condi. They re-inject the condi into the structure down below, and it thins the bitumen so that it can gravity feed down to the pickup lines and all that stuff, right?
Right.
And but so I mean, there's all kinds of pipelines, and I bet you easily 10% of my land has been cleared. Easily 10%, just for roads and leases and that kind of stuff, right? And yet, those animals do well. I mean, as I have trapped, harder and harder, you can look at it and say, well, you're affecting your animals this way or that way. But then you start taking a look at at the variable of weather. You know, like that one study I found about marten, or there's actually more studies about marten, but one study said that marten do better in areas where there's 9 inches or more snow a month to develop to develop a snowpack, because a marten can freeze to death.
Right.
Because it doesn't carry a lot of fat. Okay, very, very, very little fat. So it has to be able to get into the subnivean climate underneath the snow. And that's when your snow turns to those ice crystals. That's from sublimation, where the snow is actually gone from being solid snow on the ground, and it goes straight to vapor. It doesn't go through liquid. It goes from solid to vapor, goes up into the snow itself. And of course, as the temperature changes, then it goes right back. It sublimates the other way. So it goes from vapor to solid. And that's what makes ice crystals. Why your snow, you always talk about sugar snow and how hard it is to get around with your snowmobile. That's how it works. But that's really important to things like weasels and marten, because they can live underneath the snow, and they have to be able to get under there to survive. But when you take a look at studies like they did in the Yukon, where there was no trapping or anything went around, they said that it takes like 0.4 of a marten per square kilometer in order to have a self-sustaining population. Okay, so at a minimum, when you take and do the math on my trapping, there's a minimum of 150 marten on mine. You know, wow. And you take 35, 55 a winter. I'm not hurting them. That's how you're having far more than that not make the winter. On the average, 60-70% don't make the winter, their very first winter. And then you go up into, it gets as high as like 2.4 marten per square kilometer, and of course, and then there's I forget, 400 or 500. I did the math once, 400 or 500 of them on there. I don't think I have that many, but at the minimum, at the bottom edge, there's 150 there, and I'm catching anywhere from a third down to a fifth of them in a winter. It's when you start looking at those numbers, the fact that we have these areas that are allotted to a single person and it's not a free-for-all, that's important. And I think that allows us to control what happens out there. If one person, I don't think one person could damage that normal situation. Like mine's far more normal than yours, where you have them just one small area. You could, because they're basically trapped, right? You could do damage.
Yeah. Yeah, they have kind of a unique situation there that they're fighting. Yeah, exactly. And I find that once I like leaving my cameras out, I would notice that the marten wouldn't even go to a wolf bait if it was too open.
Yeah,
like they wouldn't go. Like I would catch them on the perimeter if I hung a box anywhere near that area, because they were in the area, they knew about it. But and then nocturnal. Like the times that I would get a picture of a marten at a bait where it was a congested enough treed area, the marten, it was almost like they would all of a sudden they would look and they would see that the sky was kind of turning bright, and they're gone.
Oh
yeah,
they are such a cool animal, but it's so unique. I mean, after spending a lot of time trapping them and traveling through the woods, now there's just places that you just know you're never going to catch a marten here,
Yeah.
And that was it was more the fisher than the marten that brought to my attention the importance of the ridges running through the muskegs, and that the fisher travel them more than the marten do, because fisher are much more aggressive animal, and they're more an animal of the edges, right? Like you catch them on the edge of a log over block, that kind of stuff. You won't ever catch a marten there, or I won't anyway, not until things are growing up pretty good. But it's so funny when I work those muskegs. You'll put a box up on top of that ridge for the fisher and that, but then you got to get down into the muskeg to set a pen for the lynx. The lynx very seldom goes over top of the ridge. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And earlier when we were talking about talking to people that don't have much exposure to trapping, it's interesting, like especially the beaver work that I do in the summertime. When I run into somebody and I'll tell them, I'm trapping the beaver that are coming to this culvert. Now I can see the dam is 150 feet away, you know where the beaver are coming from. It's just that, you know, the population is getting a little bit big. They just want to get more area underwater. It's just a natural thing that happens. And I say, you know, those beaver that are over there, that are going to stay over there, they're fine. But everything that's going to come over here, I'm going to take and leave with them. And yes, I do have to take and go back to, you know, however many spots I take and go back there annually. But, you know, when you bring somebody into that conversation and you start talking about economics, and you realize that, you know, Rich, myself, and Joe down the road, and Mary that's got a place, you know, 15 miles down some rural road, we all like it the way that we have it, and we live where we live. And when the beaver comes there and gets water pouring over the road, and now, you know, said landowner has got no way to come back out, what happens is, you know, the beaver trapper's too late, should have got there a little earlier. And it's quite possible that the road's going to get washed out, and the county's going to take and pick up the tab for all this.
Yep.
And what that means is everybody that's paying their taxes should take and pay attention to that.
Absolutely.
And I think, and then that generally gets most people, okay, well, hey, you know, something that does make some sense. And then at the same time, you know, what's beyond that beaver dam, Rich? Like, I'm preaching to the choir. Like you get into these areas in rural Alberta where you've got trees and waterways, like whatever the days were back in the day in you know, these populated areas, you know, near the Saskatchewan River, all this stuff where they basically made the beaver extinct. You know, the beavers, they came back from somewhere. They came back from these hard to reach areas where trapping, you know, there wasn't so much trapping going on. And now that they're here and they're back, you know, when you spend a little time talking to, you know, people like ourselves, and you realize that, you know, we're not doing away with the population of beavers. That's not what's happening at all. There's
I don't think we could. I mean,
No.
it took a very determined, when they did it the first time, it was a very determined, concentrated effort. And it was over a long time where there was absolutely no controls, none whatsoever. And I mean, we have so many more controls. I mean, we even have seasons now. They didn't used to, you know, it didn't matter because I mean, what originally brought the Europeans to Canada for beaver was for felting, you know. Of course, the best felt comes from a winter beaver, but you can still felt a summer one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, people just don't understand. When I talk with my oil companies and you know, well, we got to get rid of these beaver, and I said, well, we can get rid of these beaver, but you're never going to get rid of every beaver. You know, I said,
there's a thing called 2-year-old beaver.
And it's like I said, it's like, do you really buy beer or you just rent it? You know what I mean? Because it's the same thing with beaver. Habitat is never going to be empty for long. Never.
That's right. Yeah.
You know?
When you remove beaver from a spot, and the work has already gotten done by the previous beavers, when a 2-year-old comes by there and, oh, you know what, there's a lodge that's decent, there's a dam that's holding back water, they're in like Flint. And but yeah, like for me, you know, the business of especially like when I run into, like when I'm out in rural Alberta and I'm taking coyotes off the land, I'm taking beavers off the land. Trapping has got a lot of pitfalls, Rich, but you know, when you run into people that have an acute understanding of what it means for a trapper to come out there, be efficient, and get a job done, it goes a long way, you know. I mean, because it can be tough, you know. I always look at trappers like, you know, we kind of stand alone. We have our very own argument, and there's very, very little backing. Now, that's not a comfort level for a human being. What's comfortable for a human being is to be a part of something bigger that everybody is a part of, right? That's where the comfort level is. So when you're a trapper, you're actually kind of in a niche where, you know, you got to get on Rich's podcast to take and find somebody that's on the same level with you. These people, they just don't exist everywhere nowadays. You know, with all the you know, like your group that you have there, it's been really cool to take part in it, Rich, and the Alberta Trappers Association. There's so many now. At least it allows us kind of an outlet as the greater trapping community to take and share with like-minded individuals and not feel quite so isolated, if you will. I enjoy that.
Well, I tell you one thing that as and I've come to doing the podcast, I've come to the realization that ADC trappers have a very unique place in the world. You have a captive audience. If anybody can make people understand why animals have to be controlled, that it is the ADC trapper. And here it is, somebody's just had his apple tree chewed down, or just had, Fluffy got ate by a coyote. They want these animals gone, but maybe they've got some modern day guilt about it or whatever, anti-trapper guilt. And when it gets explained to them that you're not killing the last one, and that this is just control, and that animals need to be controlled for disease and everything else, ADC trappers have the biggest advantage right now, because these people want to be told that they're doing the right thing, getting rid of these animals,
Yeah.
So it's a unique situation.
Yeah, it's interesting not to it's interesting because I run into people that they'll kind of sheepishly confess, I don't have a gun, I've never trapped, I never do this sort of thing. And but when it gets to the point where they start explaining to you that they would have never guessed that the beaver is capable of whatever it's presenting to them as an obstacle, they let themselves into the world of an ADC trapper like right quick.
Oh, I had the perfect situation. I knew the lady just kind of from bumping into her at the local post office or whatever, but one day a coyote come and killed Fluffy the cat and then ate it in her front yard. Okay. And she was just distraught, and she's telling me about this, and like she went from being a trapper hater to a trapper lover in 4 seconds in front of my very eyes. And she wanted me over there to use a nuke on that coyote. She didn't care at that point, right? Because Fluffy got ate right there. She digs in her purse and pulls out the collar that was on Fluffy, and it's chewed up and everything. And I'm feeling, oh my God, lady, she's hurting so bad, because pets are part of family and everything, right? But it's like,
right,
I wish I could bottle you,
bottle
you and sell you, because.
Well, I was down at a pond, and so I've got the farmer over here. The beavers are causing him flooding, so I'm over at the pond, and there's an acreage owner literally right up the bank on the other side of the pond, and I'm down there. I'm head down, butt up. I've got my hands in the water there, and the lady from across the way there, all of a sudden I hear somebody's talking, like somebody's trying to get my attention. So I look up, and here's a lady. She's getting my attention, and she starts talking about. I said, yeah, I'm so and so. I'm the trapper. Turns out my wife actually knows this lady. I mean, it's a small enough community here where I live. And she's like, oh, I know your wife, this and that. And she goes, she's like, oh, I like the beaver, oh, they're there, they're splashing around in the water and this and that. I said, yeah, I know. I said, but Joe down the road here, it's causing him a bunch of grief. So I gotta get rid of some beaver. Then at the same time, she goes, hey, listen, can you, I've got fox. I've got a real problem with fox. Like can you come and get rid of our fox? Like so it was, she's got a little dog, and then the fox has a litter, and they raided the neighbor's chicken coop, killed all their chickens. But it's, interesting to take and run into a person that, on one hand,
yep,
likes the beaver, on the other hand, wants all the foxes gone. But that's kind of the, that's the balance of humans living with wild animals. I mean, we're, here in Wetaskiwin, I mean, it is so, almost everything is rural, yet at the same time, we've got huge congestions of, lakefront properties.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, man, we kind of hit the gamut here of all the different examples of the different types of animals that people are actually coming into contact with. But it is always interesting when you have people that love all the animals, but all of a sudden we really need this one gone.
Well, that's part of what we do as outdoor communicators too, though, with YouTube and TV shows and all that kind of stuff is we try and show our life. I mean, we are catering to the adrenaline junkies, the people that want to do what we do, want to live our life or walk in our boots or whatever. But we also, we're trying to show that, we're kind of, we're normal. We're not psychopaths. Right. And I often think, I often say, because more than 80% of our fan base doesn't trap, like for the show Trapping Inc. TV. And I say that, I mean, it's probably our secret weapon, that we're just normal everyday people. We have a full set of teeth and we wear shoes and that kind of stuff. And we're just normal people. And people look at it and say, well, look at Sandy. I mean, she's a banker. Like, I mean, she traps, and, those kind of, you like to have those kind of, those reasons to come up in their heads to give them pause, to give them think. But when you have a Facebook page and a YouTube site, Solo Trapper?
Correct. Yeah. I took and I came up with that name there when I was spending a bunch of time trapping by myself. And I was kind of pleased to find out that I took it as a business name. My Facebook profile, Instagram was taken, so I had to go Solo Trapper. I figured I wasn't going to let Apple run the I out of everybody, take it away from everybody. So I got Solo Trapper, Rich. But yeah,
Hey folks, Rich from Trapping Inc. TV here, and it's no secret that I'm a big fan of coffee. Our friends at Old Smokes smoke roast their coffee beans over wood fires. You have no idea how good coffee can taste until it's smoked coffee. Did you know that studies have shown that just the smell of fresh coffee can boost brain activity? Yeah, it's that good. Sandy and I have teamed up with Old Smokes Coffee to make our own Trapping Inc. coffee blend. Let me introduce you to Wolverine, an ultra dark roast coffee bean smoked over maple wood fires. This is the pure, uncut trapper's fuel that keeps us laughing and trapping all day long. If you'd like to try our special blend, you can find it at www.trappinginc.com/shop. If dark roast isn't your thing, Old Smokes has 5 different coffee roasts from light to extra dark, each roasted over a different wood for a unique flavor. Right now, you can order from their online store and use our promo code RICH, that's RICH, and get 10% off your entire order. Just go to www.oldsmokescoffee.com. That's OLE smokescoffee.com and use the promo code RICH. That is promo code RICH for 10% off your entire order. And now let's get back to today's show.
I've really actually enjoyed the YouTube experience. I think I've got like 5,600 or 5,700 subscribers, and just to be able to, not just be able to show that I'm not just about taking, we're not just about taking, but to be able to take and give back. And, when I get youngsters and, first time trappers, or, people that have been out of it for 20 years, when they give me positive comments about, a certain skinning tutorial or stuff like that, like, I don't hold nothing back. Like, I'll give you everything from the field, and I'll, within good taste, and I'll give you everything from the skinning shed. So, if you want the cheats, you can go ahead and check me out, because I'll give you everything. and I always say it, like, if I could have got it, like when I was a kid, Rich, like with what I did with Beaver and Coyote, and the amount of time and the struggling, and it was years, if I would have had somebody there to really kind of give me the nuts and bolts of it, like right out of the gate. And it's a lot tougher when you're pulling and you're scraping when you're 12 or 13 years old, as opposed to, being an adult. Of course, there's that element of it too. But yeah, it's been I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed the whole social media aspect of it. Now, I just got a notice just the other day here that I don't know how many of my videos on YouTube they can't be monetized anymore because of the skinning and whatnot, like stuff like that. But I've actually, I don't think that I'm ever going to take and pay any bills with with the amount of views that I'm getting. But I've thought of just taking the monetization right off of it. But
well,
I don't know.
Don't do that, because you know what? they still run ads in it, even though you can't monetize it. They're still going to run ads in it, and they take the money from it, but they're punishing you. You know,
I never thought of that.
Well, don't listen. Now you got me outraged. I just finished writing a 2-part article about this, what's happened to me and where I went and why I came up with trappinginc.locals.com. And this is the reason. They will say that what you're doing is so heinous. In my case, they've never had a problem with the skinning and that. Where they've had a problem was with my grandchildren. Okay, they're saying what I was doing was so heinous, it was on the same level as being a pedophile or something, that they could not monetize any YouTube I had that had my grandchildren in it, and yet they still run ads in my video, but they punish me by not taking any money, but they take money from it. How? You know, I don't care what religion you are, but I'm Christian, and that ain't Christian. That ain't Christian. You know what I'm saying?
That's not in the description there for sure.
No, it doesn't.
Wow.
It doesn't. To me, that's criminal is what it is. But take and go after them and talk about education. Talk about being educational. Talk about the history and what you're passing on. I've won some of those battles with skinning and that kind of stuff that way.
There you go. Good point.
And when it's dark enough in the summer, when I'm dark enough in the summer, if I have to, I'm gonna talk about being an Aboriginal or something. I'm not, but if it wins a battle with YouTube, why not, right?
yeah. There you go.
I'll have one of my many friends say that I'm a cousin or something. But why let them get away with it? They're making money off of it.
Yeah,
and you're getting a millionth of a penny off of the money they're making.
Yeah, it's disheartening. That end of it is disheartening. I mean, it's almost goes back to the whole business that we were talking about. I think it was before the podcast fired up there. We were talking about the Edmonton Football Club here. Yeah. And, but there's so many corporations now. They will refuse to take and go away from whatever it is that is going to take and maximize their advertising, their advertising dollars. If they go this way, and it'll be 2-3% less than if they go this way, they'll follow that 2-3%. And
it is terrible, and they're guilty of it, and it angers me to no end, because like none of those people were their clients anyway. They were not their customers, like in my sponsors for my trapping show and that none of these people that complain about trapping, they all live in their mother's basement in the UK. Like, I mean, they don't own Argos or drink Old Smokes coffee or anything like that. They're not customers anyway, but yet they will respond to it like it's something they have to, that they have to be careful of, right?
Yeah. I had the really good group of haters that I got was when I did a speed skinning video. And I always laugh at myself when I do a speed skinning video, because what are the fellows there from BC, Garrett and Justin there, skinning coyotes in under 2 minutes or whatever.
Well, they're from Northern Alberta. Yeah.
Northern Alberta.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did the speed skinning video, and I managed to get one in and around 3 minutes or whatever. So anyway, I plugged this video, and I don't know what happened, Rich, but this thing went viral in an Asian country, Indonesia. I've never really gone in and actually looked at the metrics, because you can see all that.
Yeah.
But the hate that I got was in a language that I couldn't understand. So it actually kind of just rolled right off my back. It didn't even really bother me too much. But
just learn how to block and ban and delete. It's exactly that simple. Because we got the 2-part article I was talking about, we got a run taken at us by a very large Facebook group, and like 1.4 million users. And, they same thing. And they had they copied off of our Facebook page, put it on their Facebook page, and they were, coercing all these 1.4 million members to attack us, to go after us. And I ended up maybe blocking and banning, it would have been less than 3 dozen, I guess. and I never ever responded to any of them. I joined their Facebook page, and I go there, and they'd be there whining about they just blocked and banned me. They didn't say nothing, and I thought that's hilarious because they weren't getting the attention they wanted. It was so simple, and I would love to be able to bottle that and take it to anytime you're looking for a non-endemic sponsor. That's the thing that they're worried about, is that somebody might have a fit about trapping. Well, it's not what you think it is. For one thing, I guarantee it's not what you think it is. And for another thing, these people aren't worth listening to anyway. This had a 1.4 million members. Wow. And it went on for 7 days, 6 days, and not even 3 dozen people that I had to block and ban and delete.
Yeah, I taken my reset, my baseline is always just always just remind myself what it is that I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And I've been out there working for the man, and I spent a lot of years, and now that I'm doing what I'm doing, like I refuse to take and allow that noise to take and get to me. And I just like some of the experiences that I've had, having my family involved, Rich. It's like I have like our 13-year-old boy from when he was like, I took him, we were beaver trapping, me and him, and I call him my godfather, old Garrett, and he's in some of my videos. We were trapping beaver under the ice, and we just got to we unloaded the machine, and we got out to the beaver lodge, and we're standing there, we're kind of unloading, and Garrett looks around, and he just blurts out, he's like, "Oh, look at over there, there's a muskrat running across the ice." And as we're looking in that direction, my son Barrett, he comes into view in the direction we're looking, and he's on a full run. He's like I don't know how old he was, like 7 years old. So I was like, "Oh wow, this is cool, this is awesome. Barrett's gonna go and tackle a muskrat." And he literally, once he caught up, but he was 7 and there's snow, so it took him a little. Well, the muskrat couldn't run very far either, very fast. But when Barrett left his feet, he literally, he'd come off of his toes like a guy diving for a baseball catch. That's how he went and flew at this muskrat. And when he went to tackle, he kind of half missed, but the muskrat just popped up underneath him. And stories like that, Barrett, he's the kid that we eat everything. I mean, he'll go catch grasshoppers, and he's got my wife frying grasshoppers in butter and salt and pepper, lynx, beaver, muskrat, squirrel, like the grouse. So this kid, kind of helped just take an add to my whole experience there. And yeah, like when we talk about that kind of garbage, Rich, for me, it's always easy. I always just take and reset back to my baseline of trapping, and because you can't, but it does. It affects a lot of people. It hurts a lot of people. And I think some of the stuff that I see on the pages, I think sometimes people would be better off just not even comment that, like some of the garbage that comes at you, if you just take and leave it alone, it'll be gone in a day or two type of thing. But some of it can't be left alone.
I never respond. I take and ban and block them, and then I delete it. I mean, this is my pulpit. When you come to my Facebook or my YouTube or whatever, this is my pulpit. I built it. Yeah. You don't get to preach from it. Yeah. That's I'm very territorial that way. And I have to be proactive that way because I'm in a little different situation, with sponsors to protect. But you, as you have your stuff monetized and all that, you shouldn't allow their basically it's censorship. It's a soft censorship, but what it is that they're not allowing you to monetize certain videos. So then you quit producing those videos is what it amounts to. Because people have come to me and said, "Well, how come season 6 isn't up on YouTube and season 7 isn't up on YouTube?" And I say it's just because of this. That's why I made trappinginc.locals.com was they don't censor it. Everything can go up there the way it is. And they said, "Well, just don't make videos like that." Why? Like I'm doing something wrong taking my grandkids? I don't have kids no more. I mean, they're heck, my oldest is just about 40. And so I have grandkids, and I got 7 grandkids, and I trap with every one of them. I can't allow that kind of censorship to take place because You know what? Those kids, your son, my grandkids, those kids are all the future. If this is ever going to stay on, you know, if it's going to continue on, they have to get that education. You know, everybody talks about, and this is a really delicate subject, but everybody talks about the residential schools and what it did to the culture, to the Aboriginal culture. And I've been in the north and you know, up in the Arctic, and I've, you know, they say, well, we really want you to come up here and to travel from community to community and teach trapping. And I said, what, an old white guy? And they say, well, but we lost all of this information, all this knowledge to the residential schools. Well, how this fits together with what I'm saying is that if we sanitize all of the trapping and hunting and stuff and that, and our kids today, the kids growing up don't see it, they don't know where the food comes from or anything. It's the same thing as what residential schools have done. You know, we're removing that information, that part of life and how life functions and operates out of their knowledge.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
know, and that's really important. That is really important.
I was contacted by the Montana and the Samson reserves from Musquatchees and did some trapping for both of them. And I'll tell you, Rich, there's just the sense of satisfaction that I get when I'm coming out of the ditch, out of the pond there with a beaver, coming to the truck, and I'm laying a beaver on the end gate of my truck. And an elder comes to a stop and starts to engage in conversation, you know, and tell stories about the old days. And, this one guy about how, you know, muskrat was the best meat that he'd ever eaten, you know, the way his grandpa used to prepare it, and you had to take the little fat pockets off. Like, I mean, it really, you know, it's kind of like when I was lucky enough, I went on a few trips hunting caribou and muskox and stuff. And when the guide's up there, you get an animal on the ground, and they start taking that animal apart, start harvesting it, and you watch what these people are doing. You're catapulting yourself so far back in time.
Oh,
it might as well be at the beginning of man. And that's kind of the experience. Like when I'm trapping beaver, lucky enough to take and meet these people. And this one particular fella there on the Samson Reserve there, he was in his 70s, if not in his 80s. And when you could just feel that he wanted to have this conversation. And when he was looking into the eyes of an actual modern day trapper, like he was just in his glory. He wanted to talk, and he was sharing information and sharing stories. It's a satisfaction that, you know, maybe if you're never trapping, if you never have a hand in it, you could maybe never understand it. But it's awesome.
You're carrying forward a tradition that is lost. You know, like, I mean, he had nobody else to talk to about that. And then, you know, some old white guy's there catching beaver, and he gets to have that conversation, you know, like, I mean, we have a lot of advantages in the modern world today, but I think that how we're destroying things like, you know, we're sanitizing stuff and we're destroying the historic way of teaching and passing on stuff, you know, like people are so busy that they're either not trapping and hunting, or they're not taking their kids. It becomes something that the guys do or the gals or whatever. We're missing out. Our kids today are suffering for it. You know, I mean, I watch, you know, everybody has tales about what little Johnny said at school to the teacher and all that. Well, I get the most wonderful stories from what my 7 grandchildren say at school and that, and they stand out because it's so different from the rest of the children. They're like,
oh yeah,
is that real? You know, is what Sam or Nate or what are saying, is that true? And yeah, it is, you know, and that's sad because, you know, in my lifetime, I watched this happen. You know, I mean, when I was that age, when, you know, going to school and all that, everybody did that. And today, nobody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It has
Yeah,
changed in our lifetimes.
Yeah, it's and I've thought of it. My wife and I, we have 4 kids. They range from 19 years of age to 10, I want to say, and we try to have them involved all the time. And I'll tell you, at any given time, especially if it involves overnight stays, it's they'll talk about that as much as any other experiences that they've had in their life that have been enjoyable. And it's like some of the stuff you just can't duplicate it. I got up one morning, excuse me, we were at Catamount there, and I said to it was Barrett again at the time. We got up and we were going to idle down. We're only a few kilometers from the town. I said, we'll go buy some candy. So we go, we just drive past the cabin, and there's a wolf. And there's a wolf, and he walks up and he crosses the tracks and he stands there and looks at us, and it had been raining all night. And so we doubled back there, and I didn't have a rifle with me, but I was like, wow, I got to try to make a play on this wolf here. But I mean, all I had was my goose gun for animal damage control. I mean, for squirrels and such. But I had I had buckshot there for bear protection, right? So because it had rained, I walked into the trees, and I did about probably a 300 meter, 400 meter loop in the trees. And when I came all the way back from where where the wolf had gone up the hill and in the trees, I saw him. I took a shot at him. I immediately took a shot, and then I just started running forward. And when I got to the ridge, I, for whatever reason, like one of these pellets caught him, but he wasn't even limping. So I don't know where I caught him, but I took and I shot him broadside, and we ended up taking pictures, and it was a nice wolf. And when APOS finds out that you're harvesting wolves like that, I mean, they're your best friend, right? I mean, you can't hardly go after the cougar. You can't go after the grizzly.
Yeah.
Anybody that's hunting in that area ever, when they find out that there's somebody, being that active. But anyway, the way my story went there is like, I was standing here, and I was standing there with my shotgun in my hand, and I'm like, wow, I don't know how many lifetimes I got to live where I walk into the trees and go and hunt and kill a wolf. But they had taken down an elk, right behind the cabin overnight. And it was right at the beginning of big game season, right at the end of August. And, these kind of experiences, my kid will talk about it forever. And you drag them around like that, Rich. I mean, there's just nothing like it. And it's almost like propaganda. You expose them, and when they have an understanding of what it all means, and that it's okay, as opposed to when people get taught it from the other side.
Yep.
I find that balance of, like you said, exposing your kids to that kind of a lifestyle, it's important.
I can tell you from experience, he will come back, and he will be 40 years old, and he will tell you about it again. You guys will talk about it again and again and again. I know it. Yeah. I know it for a fact, because I mean, it happens in my life all the time. We get sitting around a fire, and the stories come up about, well, remember the time, Dad, remember the time, remember we did this. There is nothing you can do in your life that is so important as taking your kids with you. And it don't matter what you're doing. You're going to go to the store to buy some candy. And now look at the story he ended up with,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can't plan important stuff. You can't plan it, but life happens all the time, and you just have to have them along. I mean, that's what's important, is be involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. Well, sir, I have talked your ear off now for 2 hours.
Is that what we just ran? 2 hours?
2 hours now. We might be 10 minutes under, because I forget when we started, but yeah, we're coming up on.
So you were talking about all the memory that you're using up there for all your video and stuff. So here you go. Well, now this is the thing. Like for me, when I'll get all that footage, Rich. For me, when I come back, it's going through it. That's the thing that kind of gets me. Like I try to take and run pretty uncut stuff, but you got to take all that stuff and spend all that time with it and go and edit it and everything else. But hopefully we didn't have stuff that was too not listenable, and you can take and just cut it and run it.
No, this will be straightforward. We haven't had a glitch or anything else. I had your voice got a little bit broke up once. That's it. So I mean, it's going to be clean. It'll be the way it is.
Awesome.
It's awesome. I want to thank you for taking the time, man. And we got to do this again.
Okay.
Maybe next time we'll talk more about trapping and not about.
Oh man, yeah, we kind of veered off a little bit there a few times, but
I do every time. And that we started out talking about Joe Rogan, and that's what I like about him is they wander around everywhere. And it was one of the things that I was always really, really polite and boring. Because somebody would say something and I would try to remember to ask them about it. I wanted to ask them what they were talking about. And Joe just interrupts everybody. And that's what I started doing, is that I get to interrupt and ask you to explain what you're talking about or what that detail meant, that kind of stuff. That's what keeps the flow going, and I really enjoy it. But I have enjoyed this today immensely.
Awesome. Me too, Rich. Yeah. As soon as when you sent me the transmission there yesterday, I was very interested right away. And I'm trying to, like I said, when I started ADC, the ADC trapping job, like I knew I was going to take it, and I'm trying real hard to stay out of the poorhouse. But I've managed to keep my head above water. Managed to get, I'm running into some people. Not to go on and on here, Rich, but I'm running into some folks that want to do some trapline tours, and so far it's been really good. Like the people that I'm running into, Rich, they don't want me to do anything different. They want to see me like trapping, whether I'm skinning or trapping or driving or baiting or whatever. And I'm like, well, there you go, because that's pretty much all I offer. Yeah. Like I would obviously take and run my schedule shorter or longer, depending on weather or whatnot. But, I don't catch the most fur. I don't catch the least fur, but I do like it when I'm in the middle of trapping season that I want to keep trapping.
Well, that's the whole thing. Like, I mean, for us in our TV shows, it's just our life, so it's kind of an easy gig that way, other than, you have hundreds and hundreds, thousands of hours of video. You're constantly running that camera, but it's just your life. So it's pretty good. I'm going to thank you, and we will do this again real soon. Talk to you folks out there, and thank you for, I hope this wasn't too long. All those guys tell me about that you listen to these when you're making your run in Minneapolis and all those places in the morning going to work. Well, this might get you through 2 mornings. Thanks for joining us, and maybe we'll see you down the line.
Thanks, Rich.